Welcome to Extraterrestrial Reality. Well, I'm finally crawling out of my hole that I've been hiding in since the loss by the Eagles in the Super Bowl. What are you gonna do? Life goes on. But yeah, it was a nice time, nice party I had at my house. A lot of people showed up, and it was a good time until the end of the game. Until the Eagles lost, and yeah, it really stunk. And I'm sure there's some people out there. I know, in fact, the people who follow this podcast. I know that they were rooting against the Eagles, and that's fine. That's fine. I really wanted to have the last laugh. Of course, I didn't get that last laugh. And of course, here's another thing to keep in mind. Before I started doing this stuff, there was already people throughout the country who I know, I talked a lot of, football garbage throughout the years. So, a few years, 5 years ago, when the Eagles actually won the Super Bowl, in the back of my mind, I was thinking, who's laughing now? Right? But guess what? They're having that laugh now. And not only are they having that laugh now, but a lot of people who follow me, who like what I talk about when I talk about UFOs, but don't like my football team, they're having a good laugh now. In fact, right when that game was over, it was like, it's like in that scene in what was Carrie, the old one, the Stephen King movie that was based on Stephen King's book. Oh, they're all gonna laugh at you. You can trust me. They're all gonna laugh at you. You can trust me. So I knew there's probably people out there, laughing their heads off, having a good old time. But hey, what are you gonna do? We'll get them next year. I've been saying that my whole life. We'll get them next year. It's really hard. I've been watching the Eagles since 1990, I guess. So that's 33 years I've been following that team. And during that period of time, they only made 3 Super Bowls. So it's very rare. So when your team, gets there and, you think they're going to, in fact, they were favored to win. They should have won. And plus, then to have it end, I don't care about them. Losing is one thing, right? But the thing that really bugs me about that game was, how there's a penalty call with a minute and a half left. And, and if that penalty wasn't called, it was a ticky-tacky kind of penalty. If that penalty wasn't called, then the Eagles at least would have had a chance to either tie it up or take the lead. But that chance was negated by some official who threw a flag, and basically with that throwing of the flag, the game was over. And that's what I don't like that at all. That stinks. That stinks. And I'm not happy. It's basically, and then on top of it all, to spend the whole day, pretty much yesterday, I was so hungover. Wow. Plus on top of it, the team loses. So I'm not happy about that. Okay, I'm getting some comments already. From Rumish Lance, he says, we might actually be in War of the Worlds live. And then Lunar Light says, hey, Quirk. Yeah, I'm here. I know it's a surprise. I need to, figure things out here better and advertise for when I'm going to do these things. But see, I'm not like, here's the thing with the way I'm handling things. I'm just not the kind of person that I can't just sit down and just, plan. I can't say, I will be joining you at 6 p.m. and put an ad out there, and then maybe I'm not ready at 6 o'clock. What time is it right now? 6:43. I was thinking I was going to do this at 5:30. It's 6:43. I've been here fiddling around trying to prepare what I was going to have. I'm just never ready on time. I can't live by schedules like that. I never, even when I was a young kid, I just, I didn't want to go to school, to kindergarten the first day. I cried my eyes out. I don't like being told what to do. I don't like being stuck into schedules and things like that. But I guess I'm going to have to, or I'm going to be hurting myself. So anyway, yeah, my team lost, and what are you gonna do? But meanwhile, from one obsession to the next obsession, UFOs. Okay, another third. Since I had that podcast on Saturday night, there was a third UFO shot down, and basically, as I was stating that night, it looks like it's turning out to be nothing. But before we even get into that, and I'm going to tell you what I think is going on here. It's very similar to some of the things I said before, but now, after more time to think about it, I'm going to try to be more clear about what I think is happening here. Okay, let me see. I want to pull up an article, and actually an article from the other night. This was from ABC, and I think I read this on Saturday night. This little section here where it says this was the object that was one of the objects. I believe this was the first one that they shot down, the one over Alaska. It says some pilots said the object interfered with their sensors on the planes, but not all pilots reported experiencing that. Some pilots also claimed to have seen no identifiable propulsion on the object and could not explain how it was staying in the air despite the object cruising at an altitude of 40,000 feet. The conflicting eyewitness accounts are partly why the Pentagon has been unable to fully explain what the object is, the source briefed on the matter said. Now, of course, what happened... Okay, first we had the Chinese alleged Chinese spy balloon, right? We had that the week before, and then this next following week we had these other mysterious objects, which now seem to be turning out to be balloons anyhow, right? And I was thinking it was going to be something prosaic. I mean, there's just no way. I mean, if you the flying objects, UFOs, it's very difficult to shoot these things down. I mean, if you read the history on this, the stuff that's covered up by the Pentagon throughout the years, you would see that it's really hard to shoot these things down. They fly circles around our kind of conventional aircraft, our jet fighters, and all that kind of stuff. However, I thought this was interesting for that night. This was that article that night where they're talking about. The object interfered with their sensors, and there was no identifiable propulsion on the object, but yet they easily shot it down. And then, there was 3 objects over the weekend that they apparently easily were able to shoot down. And it's almost like again, like I was saying that night, it's almost like theater. Like, okay, and who are these pilots? I like to hear these pilots that said, did pilots really say that? Or is the Pentagon just making that part up? Or were these objects actually put up there by someone within the United States? They're saying they don't know where they came from, right? They're saying the first one was Chinese, but they don't know yet where these other 3 came from, right? Or were they something that was sent up by us and then sent our fighters out and they had some sort of technology that made them interfere with their sensors and they couldn't really see any identifiable propulsion on the objects. I mean, again, the whole thing to me stinks to high heaven. The whole thing has stunk to high heaven ever since it started. I know there's a lot of people in the UFO community that was getting all excited about this on Twitter, but if you can't see through the Pentagon's ruse, I mean, I don't know what to say to you. I mean, this is a whole ruse. This is just a game. This is the show. Oh, look how easy it is to shoot these things down. Nothing to worry about. They can't be extraterrestrial, right? To me, that's what we've been seeing, and that's what all this was a show. That's all it is. It was a show, and whatever these objects turn out to be, these other 3, in addition to the Chinese spy balloon, right, from the week before, whatever they are, it's going to be something prosaic. Because it's not the kind of thing that I saw up close in 1994. That thing, I think, could have done anything. I mean, you should have saw the way this thing moved, and it made no sound whatsoever. That thing, and how many other people have experienced these things? And also, there's been so many different kinds of military aircraft that have, found themselves confronted with these things, and not just military aircraft, commercial air pilots, commercial flights, pilots of commercial flights have seen these things, and they do things that are incredible, right? They move at incredible speeds, 30,000 miles, 40,000 miles per hour, ridiculous kinds of speeds. Just had recently in Ukraine, you find out that they're going Mach 60. So again, this whole thing was just a giant ruse, right? And so, but what this does, it plants. It's like planting a seed into the brains of society. Okay, you have this, like they're talking over the weekend. Some pilots said the object interfered with sensors. Some pilots claimed to have seen no identifiable propulsion on the object. And then a few days later, it turns out to be, it was nothing. We don't know where they came from, but they weren't really dangerous or anything. And it doesn't look like, we don't know if they're Chinese or not yet. And it makes it sound like what this does. It makes it look like sometimes pilots make mistakes. They make mistakes sometimes. That's what this does. That's what it does. It makes it has them basically show that, maybe some of these objects that a lot of pilots have been talking about over the years, like the Tic Tac and all of that stuff, the gimbal object. Well, it could have been something really simple. We didn't have enough information on it. But as you can see, we shot these things down easily. There's no threat here whatsoever, and there's no way it's extraterrestrial. That's what it is. It's a whole giant game. Okay, let's see. I'm going to go to an article where he talks about the latest, the third one. I already talked about the Chinese spy balloon, and then the Alaska and the Canada one. So I guess I'll talk. I didn't talk about this Lake Huron one that was shot down on Sunday. Sunday, of course, is when I was embroiled in boozing and eating and watching the Super Bowl, and then ultimately being very, very upset. Very upset. Anyway, it says here, and this is from ABC News. It says, and I'll leave the links for every article, of course, that I'll be referring to here tonight. I will leave the links so you can check these things out for yourself, and maybe some of you have already read them. But here was one from ABC News from February 12th. That was 2 days ago. It says, military shoots down another high-altitude object over Lake Huron, officials say. Okay, it says here, another high-altitude object was shot down Sunday afternoon, this one over Lake Huron in Michigan. 3 U.S. officials confirmed to ABC News, marking the latest in a string of such incidents. The object was shot down by a U.S. military aircraft, according to one of the officials. A senior administration official said President Joe Biden directed that the object be shot down out of an abundance of caution and at the recommendation of military leaders. This official said the object shot down was detected on radar over Montana on Saturday and was seen again on radar over Wisconsin and Michigan on Sunday. So this was, on Saturday night we were talking about an object that was seen over Montana. So obviously this is that one. That is that object here. It says the object was octagonal in structure, unmanned, and traveling at about 20,000 feet, the official said. There is no indication of surveillance capabilities, but the administration cannot rule that out. A senior U.S. official said this object, like 2 others recently shot down, is not at all comparable to a suspected Chinese spy balloon that was first spotted in late January. There is no sense they are anything but meteorological balloons or some sort of weather balloon, not spy balloons, the officials said. None appeared to have any payload. They are much smaller, and such vessels are known to go off course, according to the official. Each is different and difficult to exactly identify, the official said. In light of the People's Republic of China balloon that we took down last Saturday, we have been more closely scrutinizing our airspace at these altitudes, including enhancing our radar, which may at least partly explain the increase in objects that we've detected over the past week. Melissa Dalton, Assistant Secretary of Defense for Homeland Defense and Atmospheric Affairs, said during a Pentagon press briefing Sunday night, because they have not been able to definitively assess what these recent objects are, the president wanted to act out of an abundance of caution to protect our security and our interests, she continued. We will remain vigilant. Let me just stop there for a second. Now you have to wonder, the president acted. The president ultimately makes the decision, but was he prompted to make the decision by people within the Pentagon? That's what I think has happened. I mean, the Pentagon, contacts the president, gets them all worked up. Yeah, there's more objects floating around. You want us to shoot them down, sir? Okay. The most recent objects do not pose a kinetic military threat, but their paths in proximity to sensitive DoD sites and the altitudes that they were flying could be a hazard to civilian aviation and thus raise concerns, Dalton added. See, again, I feel like this is all a big giant show. It's been a giant show. I mean, I'm sure that there's stuff like this floating around all the time, right? But all of a sudden, we're going to make a big show of it and show the world, wow, see, we could shoot these things down anytime they show up. Nothing to worry about, see? Nothing. They're extraterrestrial. These people must be jokers. The Pentagon's top spokesman said in a subsequent statement that the object was taken down by an F-16 that fired a Sidewinder missile at 2:42 p.m. Its path and altitude raised concerns, including that it could be a hazard to civil aviation, Brigadier General Pat Ryder said. The location chosen for this shoot-down afforded us the opportunity to avoid impact to people on the ground while improving chances for debris recovery. Now, I just want to stop there for a second. Now, again, it's unfortunate that I feel this way. I don't like the idea that I'm basically saying that the Pentagon is just basically playing games with the public. But that's what I see here. That's what I don't like that I'm saying this, but I can't help myself because I don't trust them. When it comes to flying saucers, UFOs, the whole extraterrestrial reality situation, you cannot trust the Pentagon. You just cannot trust them. Right? I mean, this has been going on for a long time now. Let me tell you, a long time. And so when stuff like this, all of a sudden, everyone's talking about UFOs. Now, all of a sudden, they're shooting down UFOs, but they're just turning out to really be. They could pose a danger to some aviators, but so we're just shooting them down out of, just to be a little cautious here. And then if it turns out, that, oh, it's really nothing. I mean, there's nothing really strange about them, right? Anyway, continuing, it says here, the object has been downed by pilots from the U.S. Air Force and National Guard. Great work by all who carried out this mission, both in the air and back at headquarters. We're all interested in exactly what this object was and its purpose, said Representative Elise Slotkin, D. Michigan. As long as these things keep traversing the U.S. and Canada, I'll continue to ask for Congress to get a full briefing based on our exploitation of the wreckage, Slotkin wrote. Okay, apparently the wreckage, we're not going to really learn much out of this wreckage. I mean, it's not going to be really interesting. We're not going to get the answers that a lot of us want out of the wreckage from this stuff here, because this is just junk. I mean, this is just whatever. It's prosaic, man-made stuff. Obviously, it's not extraterrestrial control. I don't think that they would shoot something extraterrestrial controlled over the United States. I don't think they would do that. Anyway, the downing is the fourth time in recent days that a high-altitude object was shot by the military over U.S. or Canadian territory. We're not going to get into the first incident. We already talked about that. All right. And, actually, okay, now there was a tweet that was put out by New York Post reporter Stephen Greenstreet on February 11th. And actually, I'm not too happy with Stephen Greenstreet these days. He was somebody, some years ago who seemed to have an interest in UFOs, but I guess I don't know what happened. I guess somebody didn't show up for an interview or something with him, so he got all mad and he got butthurt, and now he's become some sort of a debunker, right? And so I don't appreciate what he does anymore. He's a writer for the New York Post. And he puts out some very slick videos with the help of some, a lot of he has the power of the New York Post behind him, but he's using it in a detrimental way, basically toward ufology. However, he did put out a tweet on February 11th about different kinds of objects, right? And I was appreciative of this. He said there are lots of different balloon, airship, drone objects. For example, in 2014, China debuted an inflatable drone. It's shaped like a plane, but inflates like a balloon, has an electric motor and small devices for surveillance, size of a small car, just like that other object. So Greenstreet could be onto something with this, right? And here was an article that he posted. He had a link to it. This article, you can see the picture of this thing. This is from Popsky.com. It says the new inflatable Chinese drone battlefield balloons. While Chinese industry is often accused of copycatting and IP theft, its robotics research has showed great originality. And so you see this picture. I'll leave the link for this article. I'm really not going to get into this article, but you can see, possibly these things that were shot down recently could actually be Chinese spy drones of some sort, but just not the regular kind of balloon that people are used to seeing. Not like the first one that was shot down. It could end up being something like this. So Greenstreet actually might be onto something there. Now, he posted this article. His reasoning for posting this stuff was to show that there's nothing to this. Like, he's on the side of, he's anti-extraterrestrial at this point, that guy. His focus seems to be all on Skinwalker Ranch and trying to, show that that's all nonsense and that's what his, like, but I'm glad he posted this because I'm showing you why. I'm sure that our military has been aware of this stuff. This article was posted in 2000. That's 9 years ago. I'm sure that they're aware of things out there like that. Again, I think this is all a game that's being played by the Pentagon and trying to trick people into basically this was a show of basically a show to show the public, hey, there's nothing to this UFO business. Look, we easily shoot them down when they're flying over. See, nothing to worry about. Now just don't worry about it anymore. Just go back to your life and forget about it. There's no such thing as extraterrestrials. I think that's what this whole thing was about. I'm going to check out the let's see the comments here. I'm getting a few comments. Lunar Light says, do you think they actually shot them down, or is it just normal balloons, drone stuff? Well, like I just was reading, I think that was from Lunar Light. I just think it's, I just think it's whatever it is. It's just no. I don't think it's any. I think they knew that they were just going to be nothing. This is all a nothing burger, and that was all part of a show. That's what it is. Again, I know there's a lot of people on Twitter. There was a lot of people in the UFO community acting like this was extraterrestrial, but I mean, if you studied this, you should know better than. I have to take something up here with the UFO community. If you've been studying UFOs, you should know this. You should know this. I mean, how could you go jump into... There's been some people, I've seen them jumping to conclusions on Twitter. Oh, they're shooting down extraterrestrial craft. You're jumping to conclusions. If you don't know how the Pentagon operates, let me clue you in. They're going to do stuff like this. They've done stuff like this, and I'm going to show you. I'm going to talk to you about a story, right, where they've done stuff like this. We'll get into that in a little bit here. Let me go through some more comments. King Fool says, awesome. I actually caught one of these live streams. Hi from the UK. Thank you. I'm glad there's people in the UK checking this out. There's people all over the world. I mean, like, that have been checking my stuff out. There's particularly the podcast version. The audio version is really doing very well. I'm getting a lot of listens on that thing. Jesse Fee says, what's up, Quirk? Well, I'll tell you what's up. I finally got over my Super Bowl Sunday hangover, basically crawled out of the hole that I've been, stuck in, since the Eagles lost. And I wasn't happy about that. And that's still a malingerance at this point. That's what's up. I don't know if I still fully recovered, actually. Anyway, King Fool says, why are they pretending this is a new and unique occurrence? Very odd. Well, again, like I said, it's because it's all theater, like I was talking about the other day. Like I've been talking about this. It's like this is a show for the public, right? And it seems like some people in Congress are apparently going to go along with it. Yay! They'll act like it's all tough. Hip, hip, hooray! Hip, hip, hooray for the Pentagon for shooting down these objects that are probably floating over us every single day of the year, but they're going to shoot them down now just to make a show, to show us that they could shoot UFOs down at any time they want. Nonsense. Okay, JMCG says, I think we are asking them all the wrong questions. The questions we ask that are met with convenient, happy answers are not the questions that will lead to any kind of truth. Exactly. I mean, again, that's not our fault. I mean, I'm just some little voice out here, right in the sea of the internet right now, talking. Excuse me. I'm just a little voice out there in the sea of the internet, just. Who's going to hear me? Hardly anybody. I mean, I'm glad that there are some people listening to me, but most people are going to see the mainstream news takes on this. And all the mainstream news takes is basically rewriting press releases handed to them from the Pentagon. That's the problem. It's always been this way. The media is really dumb when it comes to UFOs, the mainstream media. I'm not sure, and I talked about this before, I'm not sure if it's a deliberate thing or if they're just that stupid, one or the other. I don't know. King Fool says, do you think this was a test to test the public's reaction? It was, yeah. It was. If it was, it seems there's more interest than people just freaking out. Well, yeah, I think it is it could be a test. I mean, yeah, that could be part of it. They're probably seeing how the public reacts to it, but if they want to, I hope they see this, because guess what? The Pentagon is incapable of pulling any kind of stunt over my eyeballs, right? And there's a lot of other people out there who are the same way, and they're not going to pull a stunt over everybody's eyeballs. We're going to be able to call this stuff out. In fact, speaking of that, now this is a book. I've recommended this book about 12 times probably on my podcast, if not more. Roswell, The Ultimate Cold Case Closed, by Thomas Carey and Donald Schmidt. It's probably the best book there is at this point of this. These guys wrote several books on Roswell, and this is the most recent updated version. It was from 2020. But I'm going to turn. Okay, now just before I get into this, I just want to read a paragraph from this book, and then we'll, after Roswell happened. Okay, after Roswell, here's something crashed at Roswell. It wasn't a balloon. For one thing, balloons don't crash, okay? Something crashed at Roswell. It was a strange object. Obviously, it was extraterrestrial. According to so many different witnesses, well over 100 first and second-hand witnesses, right, talked about, the wreckage was most certainly out of this world. And one of the key witnesses, and there were many, right, but one of the key witnesses, the guy who basically was the first one to come out of the shadows, was Jesse Marcel Sr. He was a top intelligence officer at Roswell Army Airfield, which was the home of the only place where they were keeping atomic bombs at the time. So and he stated very clearly that he was aware of all that kind of. He knew all the stuff that went into aircraft, and so 31 years later, in 1978, he's on video for the first time, coming forward and saying, it wasn't a balloon, even though the Army Air Forces at the time, it used to be called Army Air Forces before it became it became U.S. Army Air Force in 1948, but in 1947 it was still called Army Air Forces. And he came forward all those years later, right? And he said that, you know, this could not have been from this earth. He clearly stated it, and his son, he showed it to his son, and his son was also a smart. He ended up going. He was in the Air Force and a doctor and everything else. This smart person, right? He said he saw some of this debris too. It was out of this world kind of material, but they changed the Army told the truth at first, but then within a few hours they turned tail and they started saying, no, it was just a weather balloon, right? But what's interesting is, like, a lot of people aren't aware of this, but some people are. Let's see here. It says the final wooden stake, according to Carey and Schmidt in their book, great book. Again, this is one to have. The final wooden stake in killing that story, 1947, right? And this is from page 36. The final wooden stake into the heart was administered on July 10th and 11th in the form of numerous balloon launch photo ops or selected bases around the country, orchestrated by the Air Force and the U.S. Signal Corps. Balloon launch demonstrations designed to impress and convince the press and the American people that these mundane balloon-borne devices known as Ray-Wind radar targets, consisting of one rubber balloon and one six-sided tinfoil radar target, were responsible not only for the Roswell incident but also for all the flying saucer hysteria sweeping the nation. It worked! The press completely lost interest in the Roswell case for decades, and reports of strange things seen in the sky dropped dramatically. With the press under control, it was now the turn of the military. It was now the turn of the military and civilian witnesses. So there you go. So they tried it. They did it back then. They pulled this stunt back then. Hold on. Let me check the comments out here. Yeah. This is like this basically what's going on now, as far as I'm concerned, right? This is right out of the Roswell playbook, right? This is right out of the Roswell playbook. I mean, this is the same kind of nonsense. Okay, we're all talking about UFOs and now all of a sudden they're going to start shooting down objects that turn out to really be nothing burgers, right? Just like back then, okay, everyone's seeing flying saucers, right? And then all of a sudden Roswell happens, and then right after the Roswell incident, they all start having these, inviting the press to show what they're doing with weather balloons and stuff like that. It's all just show. It's all theater. It's just, again, what's happening now to me seems like it's right out of the Roswell playbook. And I can assure you that's what how other people feel about it too. You know, I'm sure that there's other researchers out there that are seeing right through this nonsense. You know, like all of us. A lot of us are. Again, there's nothing to this. It's all garbage. It's all trash. It's all a giant show. And in fact, you know, I talk about there's a source I have. This guy, he's a retired electronics engineer, and he did work for different companies within the military-industrial complex, as well as for the CIA and NASA. He contacted me, and he had some different insights today. But one of the things he talked about, which I will read, I actually have this paragraph here that he read, that he provided. He says he was talking about what's going on, and this was his opinion of it. He says next, and now this guy, of course, he's anonymous. I can't say his name. He doesn't want his name out there. But you guys, I talked about this guy before. And he's saying, here, next, dominating the current news, I see the Air Force is on a big push to prove how potent they are. I guess after so much talk about how they can't do anything about UFOs, they have to resort to shooting down some weather balloons and calling them UFOs. So now the media will hammer it into the American consciousness that the Air Force can shoot down UFOs. What a joke. I'd like to see them try it with the real thing. See, there you go. Again, see, other people are seeing this right through it. It's right through. It's a ruse. They've been doing this, playing this same out of this playbook for decades, ever since 1947, since it started. If anybody could, the press though will fall for it, because they always do. Again, they're basically like press relations for the Pentagon. They won't investigate any of this stuff. They won't ask any questions. This was figured out. You know, over recent months. This is my opinion, right? Over recent months, probably, or since last year sometime, most likely. There's been some people within the Pentagon and most likely that secret control group that don't like the way things are going. They don't want this information out. They want to be able to continue to sit on this information. They want to keep it a secret. They want to keep the extraterrestrial reality a secret. They don't want the public to know the truth about what's going on. So they probably they drummed up this whole nonsense way back then, like sometime last year, and now this was what you've been seeing for the last week. This was the Operation Fool Everyone in progress. That's what you're seeing. Operation Fool the World. Right? I don't know what they're calling it, but they might as well call it that because that's what I see. Operation Fool the Dum-Dums. Okay, let's see here. If there's any more comments. King Fool says, JMC says, they are deliberately that stupid. Rumo Schlan says, do you think they will disclose the retrieval? Yeah, they probably will. They're probably what I suspect. Now, of course, I could be wrong, and I hope I am wrong. I hope I'm totally wrong with everything I say. But I would imagine in the end, they're going to say, see, it turns out to be nothing. And look at some of our pilots were saying that it was interfering with their sensors, and they said it didn't have any propulsion, but it turned out to be a balloon anyway. See, there's nothing to this whole thing. That's what I'm saying. What they're doing here. See, again, it comes down to this, right? I saw one of these creatures, right? I saw one of these beings. I'm just one of millions, right? There's many people who saw these things and know that they're real. I know that they're real. And there's millions of people. There's probably some people right now listening to this podcast that encounter one of these things or are encountering them on a regular basis. So I know they're real. And if our military, if they don't know that they're real, then they're stupid and we're in unbelievable trouble. All right. William Kane says, okay, Jim, do you know what has happened to the man with whom Schmidt has written lots of books about Roswell by the name of Kevin Randall? I think he has a podcast, doesn't he? Last I checked. If not, fill me in here, because I guess maybe I might have missed something. Because I don't know, Kevin Randall, I know that he did write a book. In fact, I have a book here that he co-wrote called The Truth About the UFO Crash at Roswell. I know I have it on paperback here somewhere. And I read that book many years ago. But I'm not sure what you mean here. What happened? Does he change in his story now? Doesn't he believe in Roswell anymore? I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I haven't heard from him in a long time, actually. King Fool says, this will now be the new explanation for everything now. Yeah, it will be the new explanation for everything now. Yeah, it must have been just another Chinese inflatable, probably, or maybe Russian inflatable. But yeah, we shot it down easily. Nothing to worry about. Not extraterrestrial. Don't worry about it. JMC G says, it is very notable how fast the cheesy X-Files music and snarky comments are no longer accompanying news coverage of this. Yeah, they'll go back to that when now they're making serious that they're shooting them down, right? And then after this is all over and people start talking about extraterrestrials again, they'll put in the X-Files music or, who knows, Close Encounters of the Third Kind of music, something like to that effect. Yeah, but again, they've been fooling us for a long time. And again, if they had my whole thing, right? And while I'm happy, right, that there are people out there like the Lou Elizondos of the world, the Christopher Mellons of the world, right, the Jeremy Corbells of the world, the George Knapps of the world, right, the Gary Nolans of the world. I'm happy that there's people, that have a spotlight, that have a bigger platform, that are trying to, bring the truth to the public. But you see the forces that are working against this. I mean, for one thing, why do we have to go through all of this stuff? A lot of us know the truth, right? A lot of us have experienced these things. This is one of my biggest complaints about everything, right? My biggest complaint is the fact that we have to have hearings and this and that, and we count on whistleblowers. Like, why can't we just, go forward, jump over that, right? Why do we even have to do this, right? As far as I'm concerned, because there is a group, there has to be, right? There has to be a group in the Pentagon that knows what the truth is, right? There has to be. There's no question in my mind about that. There has to be. Why do we have to go through all this trouble? Right, that's all it is. It's just nonsense. It's just trouble. It's just and it's just dragging this thing out. Right, that's all it is. It just and that's where I'm at with it. Okay, hold on. Let's see. Okay, William Kane regarding Kevin Randall. He says no. He sticks to his story about Roswell. It's just he seems to have vanished from his podcast. I don't know. Oh, okay. He's not been doing his. I know he has a podcast because I know I see it on there. I see his podcast on my Spotify. It's always there. I haven't listened to him in a little bit. I guess he hasn't been doing anything. I don't know. I hope he's okay. I enjoyed his. No, he did that research. He was one of the original people who investigating this. Along, I believe actually that book was him and Donald Schmidt. This book here, and the most recent books that Donald Schmidt wrote and published was Schmidt along with Thomas Carey. And again, these books are really good. If you want to know about Roswell, I mean, see, this is again like this is research. These are people who investigated, did an investigation, right? Interviewed people, real people that were, and they tried to beat that. One of their concerns that they kept on talking about, if you read their book, right? One of the concerns that they had, because they're trying to beat the Grim Reaper, because all these people, a lot of these witnesses were getting old, and a lot of them, I think they're all dead now. Actually, I don't think there's anyone left alive. If there are, I'd be surprised. I think all the first-hand witnesses are pretty much gone. In fact, Jesse Marcel Jr., you could say that he was a first-hand witness because he actually handled some of the debris. He saw some of the debris that had the symbols on it, the strange hieroglyphics on it. He handled it, and he said, it was not of this earth, right? So he had a lot of these people are now gone, but these guys interviewed all these people, right? They tried to get as many people as they could on the record, and they did a great job. And now they have all this information, and they put it out there. But yet, see, the press doesn't. I mean, they go by this stupid, even some big YouTubers. I mean, I know, like, it was over a year ago, there was this one big YouTube channel that did a story about Roswell. All the information that this guy got for his big YouTube presentation, which was very cleverly put together, real slick, right? Hot, good graphics, all this, it was but all the information came from like skeptics.com, like skeptical stuff. He did not didn't get any of his information from this stuff. He went by the whole nonsense story that came from the Air Force, right? About weather balloons and crash test dummies dropped in the 1950s, all of that stuff, right? I mean, it makes you sick. You have actual people who did research that basically proves you have all these witnesses who handled debris. Some of them saw alien bodies, right? One guy, there was people who have given deathbed confessions, but it doesn't seem like the mainstream news media doesn't care about that. They only care what the Air Force says. Right? And that's what's going to happen here. Oh, the Air Force just shoots them down, snappity snap, no problem whatsoever. Not extraterrestrials. See all these people talk about extraterrestrials? Oh, they're a bunch of crackpots. And then next time we start talking about extraterrestrials all night, you hear the X-Files music playing in the background, like somebody just said. Okay, continuing here. King Fool is right. Best place to hide a needle isn't in a haystack, it's in a stack of needles. This is JMCG said this. JMCG says, King Fool is right. Best place to hide a needle isn't in a haystack. Oh, he said it twice here. Utopia, another one spotted over Romania today. Jets scrambled. Yeah, and there was something that was shot down by the Chinese as well. I mean, it just, again, is this the Chinese just putting on a show now to say, oh no, the Americans are going to start playing this game. I guess we got to play the game now too. We got to shoot one of theirs down now, I guess. It's just all theater. It's all theater. It's all to cover up the truth. You have to wonder, who's behind it? Like, who's behind it? Sometimes I know it sounds crazy, right? But one of the ideas that you could say is that, the aliens don't want people to know what they're up to, right? They don't want to know what they're, they don't want people to know what they're doing. Like I've talked about before, as insane as it sounds, maybe some alien people, hybrids, hybrids, whatever, as David Jacobs talks about, have infiltrated, some of the highest offices of government and are basically pulling some strings, right? Who knows? I don't know. That's why it bothers me when they don't want to talk about this publicly, or they don't want to tell the truth, for whatever dumb reason. Okay, let's see what other articles they have here. There was another article I wanted to go through. No, not that one. I just looked at that one. Yeah, there was two articles here by two different outlets, and they both pretty much had the same name. From the Daily Beast, why are we suddenly shooting a bunch of UFOs out of the sky? And then from MSN.com, why are we seeing so many UFOs over America all of a sudden? All right, now I haven't even looked at these articles yet, but let's go through them and let's see if they get me mad or get me happy. Let's find out. I just threw these on here as, let's find out what's going on. Okay, let me close this damn ad choices. Okay, we'll read this one from MSN. It says, when the Chinese spy, this was published yesterday at 3:40 p.m. It says, why are we suddenly shooting a bunch of UFOs out of the sky? It says, when the Chinese spy balloon was shot down on February 4 by the U.S. Air Force, you might have thought that it was the end of it. Just another odd geopolitical quirk that popped up before we all moved on to the next diplomatic crisis. Little did anyone know it was actually just the beginning of what would become a brand new trend of mysterious flying objects in our skies. Over the weekend, 3 unidentified objects were discovered and shot down, and in as many days over Alaska, the Yukon Territory in Canada, and Lake Huron off the coast of Michigan. The government has been mum about what exactly these objects are, fueling the fires of speculation that they could be anything from more Chinese spy balloons to visitors from other planets. No, I don't think they're going to turn out to be visitors from other planets. However, if they did, that would be great. Let me just stop there for a second. That would be, put it this way. I don't care. At this point, right, I'm so frustrated with this whole thing, right, with this whole cover-up, right? At this point, I don't care how the Pentagon comes out with the truth. If they want to pretend that all the stuff that happened in the past, right, is what wasn't the aliens, go ahead. Just as long as you come out with the truth right now. But again, that's not going to happen. We all know that's not going to happen. If it does, I'll tell you what, I'd be happy about it. I would be happy. Continuing, it says, but what are they exactly? Yeah, let me just stop here for a second. Yeah, I'd rather be wrong about. I hope I'm wrong. A lot of people. I was just talking about this recently. A lot of us don't like being wrong. We don't like to admit when we're wrong. I would freely admit being wrong with this. Right? If I'm wrong about any of this, I'd be more than happy to admit it. Yep, I was wrong. I guess I'm the dum-dum in the end, right? That's what I would do. Right, but I don't think I am. I think this is all a show, and unless the Pentagon proves me wrong otherwise. Excuse me, but where was I? Okay, but what are they exactly? And should we be worried about the burgeoning alien versus human wars going down above our heads? No. That's not. This ain't aliens versus human wars. What you're seeing? No, this is a big trick. It's a big trick. Let's break down a few questions you might have about the UFOs. How many objects were shot down? 4 objects have been shot down over U.S. airspace since last week, and the first, of course, was a Chinese spy balloon down February 4 by an F-22 fighter jet off the coast of South Carolina, but the identity and origins of that aerial object was clear, a far cry from what we'd seen a week earlier. On February 10th, an unidentified object was shot over Alaska. The White House noted that it was roughly the size of a small car, and the Pentagon said that it broke into pieces after being shot, which suggests it was likely not a balloon. Then on February 11th, Canadian President Justin Trudeau announced that another UFO was shot down over the Yukon Territory. This object was cylindrical. Like the others, it's still a mystery as to what it was exactly. And finally, on February 12th, the UFO was shot over Lake Huron, or near Michigan. The object flew over Montana on Saturday before reappearing on Sunday, flying at roughly 20,000 feet. Intriguingly, the Pentagon said that this object was octagonal shaped and had strings hanging off it. Strings were hanging off of it, folks. Strings. What the heck are they? Now let me tell you something. The thing that I saw in 1984, no strings, nothing like that. This thing was big. It was as big as a house. It floated above the ground, off the ground, about 2.5 stories, and was within 20 feet of me. Right, my one buddy Scott was underneath an edge of it, shining a flashlight on its belly, and it moved around without making a sound. It came this close to trees. In fact, it was some invisible force was pushing the treetops down as it moved over. There is no aircraft that humans make that would ever dare try to fly this close to trees. I'm telling you right now, there is no doubt in my mind this object was extraterrestrial. No question. When then again, I also saw an extraterrestrial being, when in my room years before that, in 1977. This thing wasn't human. It had 3 fingers on its hands, they weren't human hands. I can tell you right now. Okay, let's see. What the heck are they? No one really knows yet. U.S. and Canadian officials are currently working to recover any pieces left of the objects that were shot down. Afterwards, they'll work on reverse engineering them in order to learn their origins and purpose. Recovery, this could have been sent up. These could be objects just sent up by some scientist, working in his lab somewhere. Doesn't sound like anything significant at all, right? Strings were hanging from it. Recovery efforts are being hampered due to extremely low temperatures in Alaska, with the temp dipping to roughly negative 55 degrees Fahrenheit. The Royal Canadian Mounted Police have also warned residents in the Yukon Territory not to approach the debris. On February 13th, the White House announced it would be forming a task force in order to dig into what exactly these objects were and where they came from. A task force? We're going to waste taxpayer money on some task force that studies objects that the military, I am certain, already knows what they are. Knows that they're junk. They're not extraterrestrial whatsoever, right? We're going to have a task force put together by Congress wasting time on junk. All right. The president, through his national security advisor, has today directed an interagency team to study the broader policy implications for detection, analysis, and disposition of unidentified aerial objects that pose either safety or security risk. John Kirby, the coordinator for strategic communications at the National Security Council, said in a statement. Is any other country experiencing these UFOs? Good question. Yes. Yes, of course, we already know this, right? China reported on February 12th, they spotted an object flying over the northern coastal town of Rizhao and are prepared to shoot it down. This comes on the heels of Beijing alleging that the U.S. has sent upwards of 10 spy balloons over China throughout the years. No doubt a bit of retaliatory finger-pointing after we shot down their spy balloon last week. Meanwhile, South America is also experiencing its own UFO issue. Uruguay announced on February 11th that it had seen flashing lights in the sky and are planning to potentially scramble jets to deal with it. Are these UFOs aliens from another planet? Probably not. I agree with that statement. Probably not. I say not. Most certain, I'd say 98% no. National security officials told reporters on Sunday that objects flown over North America weren't alien visitors. However, General Glenn D. Van Herk, the commander of the U.S. Air Force's Northern Command, said at press briefing that I haven't ruled out anything at this point. So there's a slight chance that they could be aliens from another planet. If that's the case, don't expect the government to outright say it anytime soon. I don't believe one word that came out of this Van Herk's mouth. I don't believe it. I don't believe him. He's lying. He knows that they're not aliens from other worlds. They're not going to do that. Okay? I don't believe him. Again, I hope I'm proven wrong, right? But I don't believe this guy. Not at all. Are these UFOs from China or another country? Probably yes. Some national security and defense experts have speculated that these new UFOs could be a part of a concerted effort to test out the U.S. military's response to flying objects. This could help inform future spying efforts or even warfare. After all, if you know how quickly we respond to something like a balloon, it could give you insights into how we might respond to, say, a fighter jet or an incoming missile. Again, I talked about this. How many times, I wonder, over the years, over the decades, have we shot down balloons? And the public's not not alerted to this. The news, like we just shoot it down. The military picks up the pieces, doesn't tell the press, and then they move on with life. Now all of a sudden it seems like we're gonna make a big show of it. Again, I believe this was planned a while ago. Okay, why so many now? Let me just stop there. Even before I read this, why so many now? You know, there's UFOs seen every single day of all shapes and sizes. Sometimes they're balloons, right? Sometimes they're drones, right? And sometimes, right, guess what? I'm going to tell you this. Some people might need to be aware of this. Sometimes, right, they're aliens from other worlds. Sometimes. But I would say most of the time, they are prosaic, right? Anybody who studied this knows this. You know, most UFO sightings, right, I would say, have conventional explanations. But there is a percentage, like the one that I saw, right? That was no way. Okay. There could be a variety of different reasons we're seeing so many instances of UFOs appear now. In fact, there's a slight chance that the UAP's unidentified aerial phenomenon on this. That's not UAPs. It's just UAP. Stop throwing the S on there. There's no such, you don't say phenomenas. Hey, I experienced some phenomenas. What do you think? Unidentified aerial phenomena. Do your research. Do just a modicum of homework on this already. It's unidentified anomalous phenomena. It's been changed. Please. I know I'm being ticky-tacky. I feel like that ref who threw the flag the other day. I'm being ticky-tacky now. But you know what? These people who write these things, if you're gonna start writing about UFOs, at least know what you're talking about. As the U.S. government officially calls them. No, they don't officially call them, but they call them unidentified anomalous phenomena now. It's anomalous. That have been reported in the past few weeks aren't terribly out of the ordinary, especially when you consider the fact that UFOs have been a fairly common occurrence with the military personnel. Just last month, U.S. national intelligence officials released a new report on UFO sightings, saying that they had reports of 366 UFOs in 2022 alone. On Monday, Marco Rubio tweeted that unidentified objects have been flying over the U.S. for years, which is part of the reason he helped form Congress's UAP task force. So why are we seeing so many of them being publicly acknowledged and shot down by the government now? Part of it is likely due to the fact that tensions are high between China and the U.S. Everyone is on edge ever since the spy balloon was discovered last week. It could be a way for the U.S. to show that it won't take matters like spy craft lightly. I think it's other than that. There's always been tensions between the U.S. and China and Russia. Always. It never stops, right? There's always tensions. Never stops. This is a show for the American public. That's what this is. Look at how strong we are shooting down these UFOs that are obviously not extraterrestrial, right? The U.S. government more broadly has made a more concerted effort in recent years to be transparent about UFO phenomenon. Letting the public know about these sightings and when we take military action on it might be a consequence of that increased transparency. Part of it could be attributed to the psychological phenomenon known as the frequency illusion. This is a type of cognitive bias that causes people to notice things more after learning about it for the first time. I don't believe that one bit. Think of when you learned a new word, for instance, and started hearing it everywhere. We could be seeing a type of frequency illusion being played out on a geopolitical scale. I don't believe that one bit. I believe this was a setup. I believe it was planned in advance. We're going to make a show of it. People out there, the American public and everyone else, they're a bunch of dum-dums. They'll believe anything we say. The mainstream media will just hand them a press release. They'll write the press release, and we'll just move on with life, and the whole world is a bunch of idiots. Just like always. Like we always done and got away with it. Like we always do and get away with it. Whatever the case may be, it's no doubt unsettling that we're starting to hear more about UFOs in the air and them being shot out of the skies. It's not unsettling. It's not unsettling. I'm not unsettled. Look, I'm very calm about it. What I'm unsettled about is the continued lying and the setup, the games being played. That's what I'm mad about. That's why I'm unsettled. It's certainly unsettling, too, that it doesn't seem like anyone knows what they are. Oh, don't kid yourself. Don't kid yourself. Then again, we might not be all that comforted if we did know its origins. Oh, don't worry. We're way ahead of it. No, don't worry about it. Think about it. Would you rather these objects be from an adversarial nation with a sizable nuclear arsenal, or from aliens with a far more technologically superior civilization that we've maybe started a war with? No, we didn't start no war with any aliens from outer space. I'm telling you, that's wrong. Don't even think that. That's stupid. In fact, if you think that, you're stupid. Okay, hold on. So that's the end of that article. Okay, where are we? Where was I? With the comments. Okay, King Fool says Project Bluebeam dry run. Lots of laughs. Yeah. JMCG says the aliens sure are obliging of their craft getting. Yeah, I don't want to say that word. King Fool, the alleged octagonal balloon shape is interesting. There was footage from the last year or so taken from a commercial flight by the pilot showing an octagonal shaped object flying past. Yeah, I remember. I think I remember seeing that one. Yep, I know what you're talking about. It could be some sort of a balloon device, flying past, and they saw it there and he took a picture of it. It could be that could be nothing, right? But again, there's all sorts of objects out there. You can't be fooled. Don't be fooled by this nonsense. These games that the government plays, right? King Full, is it a coincidence they've used that description or have purposely used something recently in public's conscious? Yeah, see, again, what I see here, right? What I see the bottom line to me is what we're seeing here is basically a trick. This is a method of I don't know like what the idea is behind it. Like again, like I said the other day, I think this has to play itself out. It has to play itself out over the next few couple weeks or months, and then we'll see at the end of this, right? I believe we'll see what the trick is, see we shot these things down, and turned out to be it could have been spy devices of some sort, and you see we had no trouble shooting them down. We didn't come across any extraterrestrial stuff, so we don't got anything there, but you see how easy it is for us to shoot them down. Again, what this does is it puts the seed of an idea into the public consciousness, and then we all move on with our lives. Because again, when it comes to the extraterrestrial reality, the Pentagon, or actually I should say, not the Pentagon as a whole. I always make the mistake. Here's what I believe is happening. It's actually there has to be a secret control group, because you can't tell everybody. That's how this secret has been maintained for all these decades. You can't tell everybody. Only need to know, right? Need to know. I believe that there's a secret control group, right, that oversees another above top secret group that goes out and recovers crashed alien craft and that kind of stuff, right? Like all these people are above top secret clearances, right? And through the Pentagon, they control some of the people some people in the Pentagon, top generals, top admirals, whatnot, everything. Like they are told what to do sometimes by this members of the secret control group, and those people, the Pentagon, those admirals that are being told these things, they don't know exactly what's going on. Some of them might have an idea, but they are compelled to say nothing, right? I mean, we go back to the Wilson Davis memo, right? Obviously, when Admiral Wilson went to superiors to talk about what he that he was upset that these people in this in this weapons manufacturing group wouldn't let him in on the secret, right? He was told by some superiors, like this group that was overseeing him, hey, stay out of it or you'll lose your ranking and everything else. Basically, he was threatened. Right now, of course, he denies that all, but he's lying. He has to. He has no choice. I'm not going to get into that right now. We talked about that a number of times on this podcast. But again, we know that this is the kind of stuff that goes on. And it's sad. It's sad. It's sad that we're continuing with this nonsense. Again, I wish we didn't have to, right? I wish we didn't have to, because I know that there's something here. A lot of people know there's something here. There's a lot of people who have experienced these things. But there's like this big secret. Got to maintain that secret. To whose benefit, I don't know. There's been people over the decades. You hear stories that people who were actually brought in on this secret, like people like the late comedian Jackie Gleason, who was on the show The Honeymooners and stuff. There's a story like whether there seems like there was some corroboration for this. There were some people that said, yeah, he actually saw alien bodies. President Nixon took him to some base in Florida back in the early 1970s, because Gleason had a big interest in UFOs and wanted to know more about it. And apparently Nixon and him were friends. And Nixon said, I'm going to show you something. He took Jackie Gleason and showed him those bodies. And now Jackie Gleason was all shook up about seeing those bodies, and, it really bothered him. But you know what? He survived. I mean, he went on to be in more movies and TV shows. He was in the Smokey and the Bandit series. I mean, it wasn't like he went nuts. We can handle this. We're all grown up. There's people that are brought in on this secret somehow, whether they should have or shouldn't have been. Like, I don't think, if the Jackie Gleason story is true, right? Right? If that in fact is true, I mean, really, President Nixon shouldn't have done that. But he was the president at that time, so I guess he could do that. But at the same time, I mean, it wasn't like Jackie Gleason didn't go off the deep end. It's like the public can handle this. There's other reasons for keeping this secret. I think sometimes, I think a lot of it, there's, one of the reasons, of course, is the reverse engineering, the technology, and all that kind of stuff. But I think that some of them are afraid that there will be societal collapse. I mean, that could be one of the reasons too. There's a lot of different reasons, but again, I think we're all grown up, and now we could all handle it. Other people that have been, there's other people in the control group, for instance, and the people that work for the control group, right? That have seen this, that have been brought into the secret. I mean, look at Bob Lazar. I know some people, the UFO community is divided on Bob Lazar. I think he's telling the truth. Okay, I think he was brought in, and he was asked to study flying saucers at Area S4 in Nevada, and he didn't go nuts, right? I think people. I'm just having trouble with that one. I'm having trouble with the societal collapse when you really think about it. I think people can handle it. I think we're beyond ready. right? Instead of playing these games here. Now, why do we have to? Whoever is in this control group, I hope they're seeing this. I hope somehow it gets to them, right? This is nonsense. Just end this nonsense already. I mean, who the hell you think you are? You're sitting on the biggest secret, the biggest story of all time, right? Wow. Anyway, I guess I'm off on a tangent here. Okay, let's see if there's any more comments. JMCG says, I think this is a situation engineered in order to justify a general ramping up of defensive posture. Jets in the sky, bases on high alert, airspace closed without overtly panicking the public. Could be. Vapid and Engaged says, I believe the Jackie Gleason story, unrelated, but I live relatively close to Wright-Patterson within 4 hours and find it interesting just because of the hidden history. Yeah. Well, actually some of apparently the remnants of which I was talking about earlier, the Roswell wreckage and bodies apparently were flown to Wright-Patterson, according to some of the research. I'm not sure, but I don't remember if the bodies were flown there or not. They might have been. I need to refresh my memory on that one, but I'm certain that some of the wreckage was definitely flown there, and so yeah, I do think yeah, whether there's something still stored there still today, who knows? I don't know where they're keeping their stuff, where they're hiding out their secrets from the world. But again, like I was saying earlier, if we, I guess I'm just gonna bring it to this. I'm gonna bring things up to a close here. I guess the whole point of it is that I believe, I hope I'm wrong, right? I would be okay with being wrong. Again, like I was talking about earlier, the Eagles lost. I was running my mouth, talking nonsense here, leading up to that Super Bowl. The Eagles lose. Okay, I was wrong. Everyone's okay. Good. All right, I was wrong. I admit it. I thought they're gonna win. I wanted them to win. And there's the same thing to this. I hope I'm wrong. I hope this isn't a trick, but based on things that have happened in the past. And that Roswell thing is just one of many. There's other incidents too. I mean, other ways that they manipulate the public and the press over the decades with regard to the UFO topic, right? The way the government has handled this. And I think this is some sort of display of force to show that it's easy for us to shoot these UFOs down, that there's not much to them, They don't put up much of a fight. I mean, basically they're just hanging there in the air as targets, and boom, we just knock them out. That's it. I think that's what it is. I think, and again, it puts the seed of in people's mind. That story on ABC, that one I was talking about, where they're saying that it was affecting the sensors for some of the pilots. Like, who are these pilots that affected the? Are you sure? Did the Pentagon just make that up? Maybe, it affects the sensors and stuff like that for the fight. I'm not sure. I believe that. And why would the Pentagon share something like that? Why would the Pentagon share something like that? That's a good. Let's go back to that before we're gonna, yeah. Let me find that article here, where that was said. Okay, yeah, this was an article from the weekend. It says here, some pilots said the object interfered with their sensors on the planes. But not all pilots reported experiencing that. Some pilots also claimed to have seen no identifiable propulsion on the object and could not explain how it was staying in the air, despite the object cruising at an altitude of 40,000 feet. Like, you have to ask yourself a question. Why would the Pentagon even share that with the press? Ask yourself a question. There's only one. I mean, put it this way. If this thing was extraterrestrial, they would not have shared this information with the press. There is absolutely no way this information would be shared with the press. I think this was made up. I think it was made up. And if it wasn't made up, then the objects that the Pentagon knew was floating around out there, they knew that these objects had the ability to do these things, and they're letting the public know about it. Really think about this. Why would they don't usually share stuff like this with the public. Now they're saying, oh, no identifiable propulsion, interfere with their sensors, and then it's going to turn out to be some easily explainable inflatable or something, right? That's what it's going to be, like we were talking about earlier, like that one of these things that was in this article here, inflatable UAV that China was making. Looks like a plane, right? Yeah. So, yeah, you have to wonder. You have to wonder, why would they say that? Why would they tell the press that? That's a good question, isn't it? They don't usually tell you anything, right? I mean, you ever get some of the reports? You ever see the reports that John Greenwald over at the Black Vault gets? They're all blacked out, right? Nothing's there. You can't read them. I remember I had a podcast when I was talking about all these Navy pilot reports that came out. You couldn't read. They were unreadable because all the information was blocked out. But now all of a sudden, somebody in the Pentagon's telling the press, hey, the object interfered with their sensors. There's no identifiable propulsion. And then they'll come out later on and say, oh, yeah, see, they were just prosaic balloons or inflatables floating around and nothing to see here. And yeah, even the pilots were tricked by them. See, this is like planting a seed of stupidity because they think that everyone here is dumb. We're sick. There's a whole, let me tell you something, right? I don't care. Whoever's in this control group, right? Who's ever keeping this secret, guess what? There's a lot of us out there that are sick of this nonsense. I'm tired of it. And there's a lot of other people that are tired of it too. This game that you're playing, this stupidity game. Not everybody's stupid like you think. And just because the mainstream media, right? Just because they go along with your bullshit, right? Just because they're stupid too, most of them. Either that or they're playing along with you, right? People are sick of it. Sick of it. Anyway, that's it for today. Thanks a lot for joining me.